Well, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. So, turns out we're talking about brain health this week, and we're talking about detoxing the brain. So, the real question is,
We're
are
having coffee.
brains under, you're having coffee, that's good, and I'm pointing at things on the screen. Are our brains under siege? And the answer, I think, is yes. Yeah, and from all directions.
Yeah, but today we're concentrating on one thing, and that would be toxins.
Yeah. So our brain is made out of fat. So when somebody calls you a fathead, they're absolutely right. So 60% of our brain is fat, and the most of the rest is water, and there's a tiny bit of protein and nucleic acid and stuff like that in there, but mostly it's fat. And it turns out that most of the pollutants that are what we call persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, also some of the worst of them are called forever chemicals.
Yes.
Those have a high affinity for fat. They really like fat. And so our brains are actually absorbing and holding on to a disproportionately large fraction of environmental toxins.
We're all SpongeBob SquarePants heads.
In terms of absorbing toxins, yeah. Yeah, so we shared a paper from the journal Nature, which is one of the top tier scientific journals in the world, about how most people in industrial societies have the equivalent amount of plastic in their brain to one of those little plastic spoons that you would get, out, a picnic or something. I mean, that's a lot of plastic if you think about it.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and we shared another paper earlier that suggested that if you're using plastic cutting boards,
Like we used to,
and like probably you do now because they're so popular and they're so convenient, they don't dull your knives. There's lots of good reasons. But you're consuming the equivalent of about 7 credit cards per year. I mean, it's kind of amazing, right? And it's like, well, so what? It's plastic. You probably just poop it out or something, right? Well, no, you don't. It goes into your brain in the form of a little spoon.
Yeah.
Up
Just
in
like
there
it
somewhere.
doesn't decompose in the landfills.
Right. Exactly right. That's exactly right. And but the good news is we can detox this. The good news is once you get to that roughly a plastic spoon in your brain, it seems to stabilize. It's not increasing over time. There's another study that was done that showed that it looks like we have a pretty decent ability to detox it, but it's not just the plastic. It's all the stuff the plastic's made out of.
The stuff in the plastic.
Yeah, the stuff in the plastic. They put stuff in it to make it antimicrobial. Well, it turns out if it's killing bugs, it's probably not good for us either. They put stuff in it that makes it less brittle. It turns out those are endocrine disruptors. So these things have really fancy chemical names, like ultra high molecular weight polyurethane or polypropylene or whatever.
I couldn't repeat that.
But what's that?
I said I couldn't repeat that word.
But they have other names that are easier to think of, like carcinogen, which means it causes cancer, or obesogen, which means it causes obesity, or dementogen, which means it causes dementia, or endocrine disruptor, which means it messes with your hormones, or immune disruptor, which means it messes with your immune system, and so on. And so how do we even begin thinking about detox?
Yeah, so obviously we're not on here to just scare the heck out of everyone. We're out here for awareness. So these tidbits of education, they're really to bring awareness to why this topic is so important. And we're going to talk about ways to prevent, ways to help detoxify, because we're not getting away from this. I wish, plastic has had its place in the, industrial revolution, I suppose.
A little after that, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just, it has its place, but we also want to limit our use because it's overused. It's overused. It's actually really scary. There's a documentary called, do you remember what it's called that I watched on our last flight?
I don't remember, but it was a great documentary.
I'm going to put it in the comments later because it's great. And it really just helps you to have that extra awareness on why it's so important to limit our use of plastic. So, if you don't have a water bottle that's, reusable, definitely get one of those. That's not plastic.
One of the statements in the documentary was, it's sort of ironic that we make disposable products out of something that's indestructible. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're doing. So yeah, little things. So the first step in limiting environmental toxins in your world is thinking about what you're consuming, right? Mm-hmm. So we keep talking about this week after week, but Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, EWG.org. It's a great site for learning more and more about how to limit these toxins in your environment. Mm-hmm. There's information about sunscreens and skincare products and cosmetics and soaps and detergents and household cleaning products and food even.
Yeah, like and EWG is actually an advocate for creating policy changes. Yes. And one of the policy changes they're working on right now has to do with the use of plastic.
Yep.
And plastic in our environment.
Yep. So becoming a member would be a wonderful way to support the cause of cleaning up the environment. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. Limit exposure. Mm-hmm. So changing to a glass or metal permanent water bottle instead of buying the plastic water bottles. What you're doing there is multiple steps of improvement. Mm-hmm. You're not using the plastic. You're not putting the plastic in the landfill. You're not being exposed to all the toxins in the plastic, blah, blah, blah. There's tons of things you're doing just by switching to a permanent water bottle. And then
fragrances. Fragrances are huge.
Yeah, so
with toxins.
Yeah, explain that more.
So fragrance is considered a trade secret. So if you see the word fragrance on any bottle, they don't have to disclose what's in that. So they can literally put whatever they want under that label of fragrance. So fragrance is an easy way to just X out anything that can potentially be harmful.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my words this morning. My daughter got married on Saturday, so I think I'm still on cloud nine.
Yeah, and maybe a little sleep deprived, although slept really well last night. Yeah, that's a really important idea. This idea of fragrances and natural flavors is another one. Natural flavors, they have to come from a natural source, but after they come from the natural source, they can do anything they want to them. So, unfortunately, yeah. So, they can stabilize them with bromine or with chloride, or, they can put this, that, or the other thing in it to make it more shelf stable. So, natural flavors. You think, oh, look, it's all natural flavors.
It doesn't say artificial flavors.
It doesn't say artificial, but it's
a step up, but
it's a very tiny step up. So when you're thinking about what should I eat? Well, you should eat the actual thing, right? So you should eat
flavor your water with lemon.
Food, and flavor your water with lemon or orange or cucumber, berries, any number of things. Yeah. So, and then detoxing. Well, detoxing we already talked about. Eat real food.
Yep. Cruciferous vegetables.
Yep. And think about back to EWG.org, going to the clean 15 foods and the dirty dozen. The dirty dozen foods are foods that are really good at getting the agricultural chemicals into the food itself. So you should either eat those organic or avoid them. The clean 15 are foods that are clean enough that you can eat conventionally. You wanted to say something?
Oh, I just said they had low pesticide residue.
They have low pesticide residue.
Yeah, even though there's pesticides that are used on them, there's not much that penetrates into the plant. So it's very low residue.
So eating that clean stuff and eating, as she talked about, cruciferous vegetables, which is broccoli and cauliflower and spinach and things like that. Those are really helpful for detoxification. They have phytonutrients in them that help you detoxify.
Yep. And if you really, we really encourage fruit and vegetables. And if you have the 5 servings a day, that would be great. But we do also have something called fruit and vegetable powder. I've given it to my kids since they were younger, especially if they were picky eaters, and it just has the antioxidants of the equivalent of 20 servings of fruits and vegetables. So it's a really good way to detoxify. And they have a nice berry flavor and chocolate flavor that
and it's not a replacement. It's
no, we don't
supplement.
like to say it's a replacement, but for those picky eaters, or if you're having like a busy day, I have a shake every morning with it in it.
Yep, me too. Yeah, so, but this idea of 5, she said if you get your 5 servings, well, that
vegetables, and then 3 of fruit.
Yep. Yeah. So but the interesting thing is people can say, get your 5 a day, and what they're talking about is 3 to 5 veggies, and they take the 3, and then they say 2 to 3 fruits, and they take the 2, and that's how they get their 5 a day. Well, nobody talks about get your 8 a day, but if you're getting your 8 a day of fruits and veggies, 5 veggies and 3 fruits, there really isn't a lot of room for junk food. It kind of automatically cleans up your diet. And then just being a tiny bit careful about consumption. But again, don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. So it turns out that if you're thinking about a ultra-processed food versus a non-organic berry, eat the berry. Right? So don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. Eat your fruits and vegetables. If you have the time to think about it, then look into EWG. Think about the Clean 15. Think about the Dirty Dozen and act accordingly. And then, like us, we eat our 8 a day, and yet we also take this fruit and berry drink because it has the phytonutrients and antioxidants of 20 servings of fruits and vegetables in addition.
Yeah.
And then binders. And then binders.
I keep a binder by my bed, and if I wake up at night, I take it at night usually, just because of my high mycotoxins and other things that I am trying to combat. But it also works for...
She's a suboptimal detoxifier. So for most people, when we measure their toxins in our office, they go, oh my gosh, where are all these coming from? Oh my God. Well, the problem is that we live in a toxic environment where babies today are born with almost 300 identifiable industrial chemicals in their umbilical cord blood. So we're all bathed in these toxins all day, every day. And some people don't detoxify as well as others, and they collect them. So in the same exact house, we might measure, a few people. One person has very low toxin levels, and the other person has really high toxin levels, yet they're eating the same food, they're drinking the same water, they're doing the same things. And it's because of the difference in the body's ability to detoxify. And the difference between the absolute best detoxifiers and the absolute worst detoxifiers can be as much as 7,000%. So it really is an issue. Some people, we all know the person who can never gets a cold, and the other person who gets every single cold that comes through town. And that's the robustness of their immune system, but that same breadth of robustness applies to the detox system as well. Yep. So what is this?
And that's all, we can all optimize that with, proper nutrition, paying attention to gut health. Gut is huge with detox. And I notice when I'm having more GI issues, it's kind of a trigger for me. Okay, I'm probably having greater issues with detox right now. I have to
be more headaches.
Yes. Yeah. So you can listen to your symptoms and listen to your body, and definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So
optimize.
Yeah. Your genes are not your destiny. They can be optimized, and the way we do that is through diet and lifestyle, exercise. Exercise is really important. So, doing all the things you already know how to do, that's the problem. We all need to do the things we know what we're supposed to do, but we just don't have time. But we suddenly have time when we have crippling arthritis, or we have brain fog, or dementia is coming, those kinds of things. So we really should be thinking.
We don't not have the time.
Right, yeah. We can't afford not to have the time.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably a better way to say it.
So I want to go back to this idea of binders. What are binders? Binders are charcoal and bentonite clay, and
we have a couple of them.
And basically what they do is the toxin. You want to optimize your liver's ability to detoxify. Then you want to mobilize these toxins, Well, first you want to eliminate them from your environment. We talked about that. Then, optimize your liver's ability to detoxify, mobilize the toxins. They get to your liver, they get detoxified, they get put into your bile and injected into your intestine, where your microbiome, that teeming ecology of bugs, actually takes apart the detox process, and you can actually reabsorb some of these toxins.
Yeah, the reabsorption's the issue here.
Yeah, so
you can be detoxing, but if you're reabsorbing, well, there we go.
Yeah, and mycotoxins or mold toxins, which are quite common because we wrap our houses in plastic, right? Before the oil embargo of the 70s or 80s or whenever it was, I was in high school, so it must have been the 70s. We didn't wrap our houses in plastic. Sometimes you wrapped them in tar paper or something like that, but that breathes actually. So it turns out that our houses are much more susceptible to mold. So mold toxins, not only do they get into our brain really easily, they get reabsorbed through the detox process really easily. And one way to prevent that is to put these binders in. So you take these capsules of charcoal or bentonite or diatomaceous earth or whatever you're going to use.
We don't recommend making your own.
Yeah. You should get one that's commercially created
and tested and all that. Yeah.
And it sits in there and it catches. So we call it push, which is the detox process, and catch, which is the grabbing onto the toxin once it's in your intestine, so that it can, as my professor in med school said, exit the back passage.
Yeah, we have a couple Quicksilver. Yeah, we have a Quicksilver kit actually that's called
Push Catch
that Dr. Shade calls Push Catch. So,
yep, and then we have other binders that we have as well. So there's lots of options, but bottom line is be intentional about the fact that we live in a place where in Minnesota, we're an agricultural community, and we think, well, gee, it's a pristine, beautiful place. I mean, it's emerald green here right now because we've had a bunch of, I was looking out the window, because we have a bunch of...
it's cold out there today, so
that's why we're
inside
indoors. Yeah.
in the fireplace.
But the truth is, the health department tells us not to eat the local fish more than once a week if we're not pregnant, and once a month if we are pregnant, because we're also a mining state, and the mining tailings contain things like heavy metals, like mercury in particular. So it looks beautiful, but it's not as clean as it once was, and it's the same everywhere. If you live in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I'm originally from, there's this Silicon Valley, they call it now. Well, they use all these chemicals that have heavy metals in them to dope the chips. So that they can do the fancy things that computers do, and it turns out that's a big problem for the environment there. So there's every place you go, there's some kind of industrial activity that is causing pollution of one kind or another. So we need to just get our heads wrapped around the fact that we live in a toxic environment. Again, babies are born with them, which means mom delivered them, which means mom is toxic. And not to blame mom, but I'm just saying we're all toxic, and
we're all toxins, maybe.
Hopefully not. We're not all toxins, but
toxic. Toxin. We're talking about toxins.
Yeah. So anyway, getting your head wrapped around that, thinking about it more, starting to think about how can I avoid some of this stuff, and how can I make it easy to avoid. So and that's where the water bottle comes from, and the real coffee cup. Hold up your coffee cup there. The real coffee cup, not the plastic one or even the paper one, which is lined with plastic. It has BPA in it, and BPA is one of the problematic chemicals. It's been taken out of baby bottles and water bottles, but it's in everything else. So anyway, trying not to scare you, just trying to make you aware. There's things to do about it. You
have choices, and
And why? How do we bring this all? Why do we care about this? We started out talking about brain health. We ended up riffing about toxins the whole time.
Because that's what today we're concentrating on, was brain health and toxins.
Yeah, and it turns out that, again, some of these are called dementogens. And they really can be a serious problem for your brain.
Yeah.
We have an epidemic of dementia. There's, in developing countries, they really don't have a lot of dementia. There's some, but it's not like we are experiencing. And I think it's time to wrap up. So thanks for being with us, and Let us know in the comments if we're going too crazy and you think we should keep it lighter. But these are kind of serious topics, and we're trying to arm you with the information you need to protect yourself. All righty. We will see you next Monday, 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Bye.
Central.
Central time, that's right. Bye.
Bye.